Hey, what's up? This is a review of the SBBN037, otherwise known as the Blue Tuna. This is one of the variants. It's the one with the blue bezel and a dark blue dial, and it's supposedly, let me get this in focus, this is a JDM, well, it's not supposedly, it is a JDM model, but supposedly it's also a limited edition model, though I mean, most places seem to say, that it is, but there's no limited edition number, nor does it say anywhere in the packaging or the tags or anything. So I don't know about that, but whatever. I've always been into the tuna design. Had the SBBN033 before, which is basically black dial and stainless steel bezel. Came on a black rubber strap instead of this like navy dark blue one. Really liked it, but for whatever reason I just felt like selling it and just changing things up. But I always went back to a tuna design in one form or another, either as a SKX mod, which was I believe my second tuna technically, and you can see that in the videos from way back when I did that one. And that was a pretty cool one. That's pretty fun. But what else did I have? I had a solar tuna, the patty version with the red and blue bezel. Also had the golden tuna, and maybe technically the very first tuna I had was the baby tuna, or really should be called the tuna monster or monster tuna, because it's more of a monster design with its shroud. I can't remember the model number, but it had like a shroud that kind of came up partially over the bezel like that. Different, it's more of a monster design with the bezel, the way the grip is designed too. And that was all right, but that was my substitute for a tuna at the time, because I felt like, oh, almost $1,000 or around $1,000 seemed kind of expensive for something like this. And the baby tuna was considerably less expensive. I think you can pick it up. I think I picked it up for around 300 or so. But it just did not have the same look or design feel. So eventually I got the SBBN033, so that other baby tuna, and yeah, but I hadn't had one in a while, and I also wanted to make use of my 22 millimeter straps, because I don't have any watches that utilize 22 millimeters anymore. And I decided, well, I should get another tuna back in, and I've been thinking about this one for a while, because I wanted one that looked pretty classic and standard, like the black one, the black bezel and black dial, but I didn't want to go that standard. And the idea that, this one has a dark blue finish on it, mixed with the silver, seemed like a pretty cool idea. So I went with this one. You do pay a bit more for it, and again, I think it's because it's a bit of a more rare model. You don't see as many people with this, which is another reason why I picked it up. But it's got the same great 7C46 movement in there. I should see that somewhere in the back, right there. And it's a quartz module movement made specifically for the tuna. And yeah, so it's just it's got perfect ticks, and it's very accurate and all that, and a 300 meter dive watch. And let's go over the dimensions real quick. It is measuring from the shroud. It is 80 millimeter, not 80, yeah, 48 millimeters from the shroud, and then lug to lug is actually 46 millimeters, and that's if you count the very outer parts. So if you count where it pivots, it's actually, I think, maybe even closer to 41 millimeters. Let me just see. So it's definitely smaller than you think, especially since the case is very big. Yeah, it's actually almost 42 millimeters if you measure the pivot points of the spring bars. Actually, it's around 41 in the center of the spring bars, so quite short lug to lug if you think about it. And that's the most important thing about this, and that's one of the reasons why Tuna, or actually most Seiko watches and dive watches in particular, that seem seemingly large, a bit large on the spec sheets, but once you put it on wrist and you see how they do their tricks with sizing and scale and proportions and also angles, and just balancing out the watch, it actually wears several millimeters smaller than you think. I mean, you put this right next to a turtle, which is 45 millimeters compared to this 48. This still looks smaller right next to it. And I have an old picture that I did when I had both of them together. Like, I'm talking about like the SRP turtles, which I guess is the latest turtles out there. But now, if you, the thing that makes this wear so well is that, one, of course, the short lug to lug. It's actually shorter than the case. If you really look at it, it's kind of within the case because it's cut into it, and it's below. It's right at and kind of underhangs the case a bit too. So it just goes around the wrist really good, and I'll show that in a moment. Even on my less than 7-inch wrist. Oh, wristwatch check. This is the SBSA055. I forget what the SRP, the other designation is for the international version, but I think the Japanese version goes by SBSA055. But anyways, yeah, Seiko 5 with the military, what I call olive drab dial. We like it, and I have it adapted I have this Uncle Seiko bracelet. He calls it the Mexican Holzer, Holzer bracelet, which is basically made for the Omega Speedmasters. Comes in a 19 or 20 millimeter in link, which you can specify and get. Obviously, I got 20 because this is a 20 millimeter space, and basically you just spread open the tabs on the bottom until you get it about right, as close as you can to match the the angle and the shape of the case, and there you go. I think it works pretty well. I should do a review on that later. But anyways, so I'll show this on the wrist later. And keep in mind also that visually, what you see up on the surface usually is what you're going to kind of gauge the size by, actually more so than the overall shape and size of the case. Like, for instance, again, the case, it does flare out towards the bottom, right? You can see that it gets wider out towards the bottom, so that's where I'm measuring 48 millimeters. But if you actually mess with the bezel, it's actually 41 millimeters. So you're going to get a pretty small wearing looking watch, surprisingly. You didn't think anyone could pull off 48? Well, you'd be surprised how well this works. Granted, this is a watch that has, a lot of wrist presence, and it should. It's a straight up tool watch. Hang on a second. Hope you can hear that in the background. Sorry, side chatter. Anyways, so yeah, it wears substantially smaller than you think, and which is great. And let's just show this on this real quick. Side, and of course, the strap that comes on is pretty comfortable. Oh, I should mention the thickness from case back to the slightly domed, it's domed crystal, but it just peeks out right above the bezel, and you can see, and it's also slightly inset into below it. Pretty neat. That's what also makes a tuna in this design. It's just the way it looks, and I'll say that practically no other crystal distorts like Tuna crystal does. I love this. How it really distorts the back. It looks like it's dipping away, and it creates a real spherical shape almost. You can see it's like a bubble or something. And that's, I don't know, it's a super cool look that you don't really get from any other watch as far as I've known. And so that's what also makes a Tuna kind of special. I mean, there's all sorts of other lesser expensive ones, such as the Tuna, the Urban series, the Solar Tunas, but they all have flat crystals and some other different number, pretty major differences too. But that's one of the design features that I really like, and you're just not going to get that. Even if you replace those crystals, like they're also usually Heartlex, with an aftermarket sapphire that might even be domed, it just won't have the same effect. Anyways, even for a 15mm thick watch, I mean, this is a serious dive watch, so it should have a decent presence on the wrist. Let me back it up. But it's totally wearable. Get that in focus. And I love how the bezel goes from dark to bright blue. You hit the right reflections. I think this is very similar to what you see on the older 62 Moss reissues and the MM or Marine Master or Baby Marine Master, whatever you call it, 200s. They look like the Marine Master 300s, but they're less expensive and different movement and all that. And they still have this. Both of those models I'm referring actually have basically the same handset as this, I think, more or less. And I guess they used to call this like a liquid blue or something along those lines. Because I used to own another watch that had that. What do you call that one? It's under the SBDC model line. If it was the 50. I believe it was the 50 or 63. The black dial with the blue bezel. But anyways, see, so again, my wrist is about 6.875 inches. This out of the way, and it's super comfortable. I always say this is the smallest wearing 48mm watch you're going to ever wear. Definitely one of them. And it's a great watch though. And I don't mind that it's quartz. And I like the fact that these newer ones don't have the Prospex X, although I think it's still on the crown. You can see that. Yeah. That doesn't bother me. It's whatever. But I like the fact that this version at least still says Marine Master Professional with 300 meters on the dial instead of the Prospex logo. I don't have a big problem with it, but it looks better when it says Marine Master, right? And this looks great on a number of straps. Clean that up. I don't know what that is stuck to there, but anyways, I'd say the only thing I wish, number one, is that they would have made this with a metal bracelet option, like they do with the SBBN0. Is it this 31? I think so, right? This black bezel, black dial with the stainless steel option. That would have been cool. But on the rubber strap, and these are pretty comfortable and they work. I don't mind the metal keepers. Some people don't like them, but what I really think they needed, of course, not just this and probably their other watch bands that have, rubber straps, is they need another keeper here, whether it's metal or maybe a rubber piece. I think, I don't know if you can see, but it tends to want to eventually kind of bow out or something, because this isn't a very tight fit here. And throughout the day, whatever you're doing, not that hard to knock it or just have it come out like that. And I don't know, it looks kind of sloppy. I really think they should have added something, piece across here just to hold this part down, and then it'd be fine. And this can, be wherever it needs to be to hold the end. That's the main thing that always comes up in my mind, that I wish they had something here, or I could probably try to add something, but for this particular colorway, I mean, you're not likely to get another metal keeper that will fit, and even the rubber strap options, like a rubber keeper that you can get, they're usually, see, they don't come in this specific color for one thing, and I don't think they have quite the thickness in the opening, that's basically a loop, right, to support this much strap in the middle. But I guess it'll stretch, but it could be still a bit too tight in the pain he has to work through. So anyways, I don't think I'd change anything else. Some people prefer the older style dial and handset, but I really don't mind this. I kind of like the way this looks, and it's very legible, and of course the loom is amazing. And here is, I'd say on my version, it lines up perfectly as it should. See, is there a back plate? Not really. I mean, you just kind of always back turn it just to let it, make sure it's locked and settled in. And if that's lined up in that position, then it's fine. And it is. Can you hear that? It does changes a bit, the sound. I don't know, it's always been like that since I got it. But I mean, it still turns. It doesn't really like get stiffer or looser when it changes that sound slightly. But yeah, not sure why that is. Maybe this is a model that's been sitting around and it's held this position for like a while. This isn't a new watch at all. It's been out for several years actually. And maybe since I finally got it, it's some of the areas are a little bit more, I don't know, put under a detent, or the spring is put under a particular tension more in one position. I mean, if you ever see a click spring, if it's like any other one, there's it's not just one position that clicks, but there's actually at least one other portion where there's a click, and they alternate locking, I think. And so maybe again one of the other ones is I don't know how to say it, not as fatigued, I guess, as the other ones. That one that's been holding this bezel in place for who knows how long it's been since it was manufactured. But again, it doesn't affect the performance of this at all. It still locks and rotates just fine. Although I do think my previous SBBN033 with the stainless steel bezel version, had a more even sound, and but the feel is basically the same. So that's that. No open case back, but unlike some other Marine Masters or Tunas, this one, some of them you have to actually open from the front. This you can open from the back. In quite good condition, considering. Sometimes, even if this is just on wrist for whatever reason, sometimes scratches just still get through here somewhere for some reason. What else can I say? I do a Loom Shot, but I think well, here, let me pause this so I can do a Loom Shot real quick before I close out. Okay, well, here's the watch I was wearing earlier, and you can see it. Just compare the Loom to that one. They just both got a fresh charge, so I'll just do that real quick. You can see definitely more vibrant, and it should be. And people have always said the loom formula that they use on the Marine Master 300s, or especially the Tunas, probably the best that Seiko has. And I tend to agree. It's very reactive. It's very vibrant, very long lasting. Can't see anything bad, right? Let's get up close and look at those. Focus. And slight tonal difference. This does, part of it was covered by the hands. So that's why there's a dim spot, but you may not be able to see it. But yeah, this one, to my eyes, I don't know, this one looks kind of more blue to you, but it's not really blue. But in comparison to this is, in my eyes, this is more of a stronger bright green. This is just not as vibrant a green, but it's definitely, or if either one of these are showing up blue, they're not blue. They're definitely green. Just sometimes the white balances go kind of out of whack like that. And so, let me turn the lights back on. See, still, this stuff will last a very long time. Gotta love it. Never known great loom until I had a Seiko. That's all I gotta say. And there's definitely a lot of good stuff out there now, like the newer loom formulas, but you basically have nothing to worry about whenever you buy a Seiko loom. I think some applications might be a little bit more petite and not as wide or large coverage area, but either way, they still do tend to hold their loom. You know, the longevity of the loom does seem to hold out overnight either way pretty well. This is just that much a little bit better than perhaps what's on the Seiko 5. Anyways, yeah, don't have too much more to say to this. I just really, things I like about it are this particular colorway, the blue, dark blue, and this also has the brushed shroud, which I prefer. The SBBN037 had a high polish, which it's all right, but generally I like brushed, especially on a tool watch. This makes it more tooly, in my opinion. Yeah, so I appreciate that. This is basically all completely brushed, except for if you look inside there, the cutouts, even I guess the hex screws and the lugs, if you want to call these lugs, and of course the case back, those are high polished. And I guess the crown is too, but basically majority of it, what's up front, which is basically outside, which is the shroud, and the bezel, it's all brushed, which is primarily brushed rather, and I don't know, I think that looks really good. Perfect ticks. You know, what else is there? The loom is the best that they have, I would say. And the history and the ongoing, you know, life of the Tuna brand, not brand, but the model is going on today. They kind of reintroduced a lot of new ones with, they went back to the older design, I think, where it's more round plops, which, I don't know, sometimes I feel like there's too many circles on those older ones. I like the fact that this is, you know, the triangle-ish thing, and the elongated partial tic-tac shaped at the cardinals, and then of course this one gets cut off by the tape, but it's not a big deal. At least they still have it, and you can see that in the dark too, and as well as daytime. I don't know, I think this layout is pretty good to me, and I don't mind the handsets. It's real easy to discern either one, and it reads just fine. Any downsides? Again, quickly, I think that lack of that one keeper right past the buckle here, when you get that strap through, will help to keep it just that more secure. The they could have, for a little bit more, I would have happily paid to get it on, the Seiko Marine Master, basically bracelet that has the extension, just like the Marine Master 300. Even though this is also Marine Master 300, but the other one that they usually call the Marine Master 300, that has the 8L movement and quite a bit more expensive. And what else is there? I really can't see anything bad. Be interesting. They basically keep more or less this design with the more dive style and translate it into one of the newer urban series. You've seen the gray dial version and the gray version, and there's one that's more earthy and tan colored, and they shrank it down to 43 millimeters. And one of my friends picked up one of those, the gray version, the gray and black version, and man, I mean, you thought this one as a big size were kind of small. That one, 43, it's amazingly compact. I mean, I compare it next to a 40 millimeter watch, and that definitely looks just as big as a 40 millimeter, if not somehow a bit smaller. And so they can do that, and it's automatic too, and they can make that into a dive style, which I don't see why they couldn't. That one's just kind of more streeted out, but if they went back to a more traditional tuna diver look with that 43 millimeter case, that would be pretty cool. Maybe I'll come back and revisit one of those someday, or revisit, and if they have the right colorway. And of course, hopefully they'll make a matching strap option, but because these always take just a straight end link bracelet anyways, you can pretty much find any straight end link bracelet and pair it up as you see fit. And some decent ones, from Strap Code was the ones that come to mind. Uncle Seiko isn't bad either, but I guess that's it. Quit rambling on. Hope you enjoyed this. I definitely recommend one if you can get it. Is it worth the amount? Sure. I mean, it's a proven design. It's a classic design. It's a unique design. It's definitely one, actually there's a lot, but this is definitely one of Seiko's trademark designs. Nobody, well, I won't say nobody copies. There's plenty of copies out there now, but I don't know. You could have gone with San Martin, I think makes one, Heimdallr, probably some other Chinese homage watches, you would say, for around $200-300, I think. Not bad with an automatic movement, and but I don't know, if you can go with the original. It's just I think it just feels better. It's more right if you get the original. But if you want to do some personal tweaks and mods, then maybe consider one of those other ones as like a mod project, I guess. And but for these, you just buy them and leave them as is and enjoy them as is with the occasional strap changes, because that's what's great about them is it's kind of a strap monster, and of course the drill through lug holes help out a lot. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna try to cut this under 30 minutes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.